Hey everyone, my name's Jim, how the hell are ya? If you've been following my Instagram recently, you know that I recently took it upon myself to go on this epic journey, and that was to play through every Sonic the Hedgehog 3D title that I own or that I could get my hands on. Today I'm going to be ranking them in a tier list. I didn't beat every single one, but I did play enough of each one to get as many interesting takes as possible. The games that are absent from this list are the Sonic R, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Free Riders, and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. And that's mainly down to I couldn't get my hands on a copy of them, I couldn't find them online, I couldn't find them on Steam, or I just didn't want to play them. So a quick disclaimer, I understand, right? I mean, I feel that I have to clarify this because the Sonic fandom can be a little over the top at times. I mean, it's the same with any fandom, but with Sonic it can be a bit extreme sometimes. So let me just clarify something. 2D Sonic games, I understand that that is most people's preference. That is what the fans grew up with. That is what they love. I appreciate them for what they are. They just aren't for me personally. They're not my cup of tea. I don't find as much joy out of them as I do with 3D Sonic. And down to the fact I'm just not very good at them. So that's one too. So, okay. Anyway, so before I dive into my first game on this list, I just want to show you my tier list right here. I've got all the games right here, 16 Sonic the Hedgehog titles to talk about, so without further ado, let's get into it. So the first game on this list is Sonic Adventure. Where are you? There you are. That's going straight at the S tier. Now going into this game, I'd never played it before in my entire life. The game has gone down in history as something which has aged poorly in a lot of aspects, and I can understand them to a degree. I mean, look at this face. This sums up mostly what I mean when it comes to bad visuals and a really bad English dub. But I'm going to say straight off the bat that Sonic Adventure is a blast. I absolutely loved it. Despite it being old, I have gone into this with completely fresh eyes. I don't have that nostalgic feeling. I don't have that connection to it from when I was a kid. So, when things age poorly over time, this was freshly given to me on a silver platter, and I ate that shit up. So in this story, Sonic and friends are trying to stop Eggman from feeding the evil Chaos creature the 7 Chaos Emeralds, because with each emerald it swallows, it gets bigger and more powerful. The story can get a little weird in places. The game doesn't really know what order you're going to play the campaign in, but what I find most intriguing about its storytelling is that it kind of tells its story from certain viewpoints from its characters. Now, for example, in this cutscene right here, in Amy's campaign, we see her in prison being interrogated by Gamma, and the dialogue switches depending on what character you play as. In Amy's story, Gamma is portrayed as this intimidating robot, while in Gamma's story, he doesn't really say much. He's sort of questioning why he's there. It kind of reminds me of the film The Last Duel, if you saw that last year, with the story being split into 3 parts, telling the story from the perspectives of each character, like this person's point of view, that person's point of view, and then the truth. Sonic Adventure does this too, and it's like the story is told from how each character sees that situation. It's like every person has their own version of the truth. And that's kind of how it feels when I play this game. And it's fascinating that a game of its time does this sort of thing. It's not brilliantly pulled off. It's like every person has their own version of the truth from a certain situation, and that's how it feels when the characters cross paths in the story mode. Now the gameplay on the other hand is what most people play games for. You could have a great story, vice versa, great visuals, but if a game isn't fun to play, what's the point? Sonic Adventure is so much fun. So we have 6 campaigns. We have Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and Gamma. Notice how I said big there? Don't worry, we'll get there. Sonic stages, it's all about high speed and platforming. Knuckles is about treasure hunting for missing Master Emerald pieces. Tails' stages, you have to race to the goal. Amy is like a family-friendly Resident Evil where you have to avoid an invulnerable robot named Zero. Gamma is a shooting platform, and Big goes fishing. Yay! So I'm not going to dive into too much detail with the story here, but I really enjoyed each campaign, except for Big. Sonic blasts forward at high speeds, utilising the spin dash ability to do crazy tricks, skip huge parts of the level to achieve better time so you can get an A rank. Knuckles, you can glide, climb walls, use hints to find treasure. Tails can use his flight ability to traverse large portions of the level, and sometimes you can break the game doing this to the point where you're moving quicker than the game is loading in parts of the level. If that doesn't make sense, there's a clip right here. Amy's campaign is an intense chase by getting through the stage while avoiding Zero. Gamma has to shoot his way through levels within a time limit, and Big, I don't mean to be the 87th millionth guy to complain about this, but it's just how I feel. Big's levels may be short, and there's not that many of them, but they're a slug to get through with awkward fishing mechanics like the fish that latch onto your line, but they constantly let go. It's like you're trying to reel the fucker in, and then it lets go at the last minute, so I couldn't be bothered with all of that. I just went for Froggy, and then moved on. I just don't understand how the game went from high speed, racing, treasure hunting, family friendly Resident Evil, shooting to fucking fishing. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, if you like Big, that's completely fine. I just can't stand Big's campaign or the character. He's dumb, and I don't like him.
I want you to stay here.
Why?
Because I hate you.
No!
But overall, Sonic Adventure, with its unique hub levels where you have to talk to NPCs to find out a clue of where to go next, really utilises these aspects really, really well. Sonic's campaign being the best and tons of interesting ideas, while not being the best looking and not the best performance. This game is very, very buggy in places, but I still loved my playthrough of it. So yeah, Sonic Adventure at the S tier. And just for clarification's sake, I did play the DX port on PlayStation Now, not the original Dreamcast version. Right, moving on, we are on Sonic Adventure 2. There it is. That is going at the S tier as well. So Sonic Adventure 2 is the one which people seem to prefer over Adventure 1, and in a lot of ways I can see why. Personally, I much prefer Adventure 1 to this one. I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 doesn't have any hub worlds and it's mainly all based on the action stages, and while that's fine, there's just things mechanically about this one that I don't like. Things that just edge Adventure 2 ever so slightly behind the first one for me, and I'll get into those right now. So basically, with the mechanics, when you're running as like Shadow or Sonic, speeding down a huge hallway or something like that, with Adventure 1, it's not just about holding forward. You had to sort of use your momentum and move the stick around a little bit just to keep yourself at an even pace. But with this one, I don't know if it's just me being bad at the game or something, but I can't stop myself. I can't stop Sonic or Shadow from sticking to the walls and killing my speed. It's just irritating. With the Knuckles treasure detector in the first one, you could like go for whichever one you wanted first. In this one, you have to collect the Master Emerald pieces in a specific order. So for example, if you're on one side of a completely large map and you find one piece and the game wants you to go to the other side of the map to try and get the second piece, but the third piece is closer to where the first piece is, the game doesn't allow you to do that. So it's like, it's a really tedious process, and it's really, really slow. Sometimes you could spend up to like 20 minutes, maybe even more, if you don't know the game very well, looking for these goddamn pieces. And especially like the space levels with Knuckles, I spent like maybe 40 minutes on one stage looking for these Master Emerald pieces, and I thought, I could easily replay that if I knew the level, but I can't be arsed. Another thing which kind of bugs me about the mechanics of this game as well is the homing attack. For some reason, it doesn't always lock on. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, for example, in the first game, in Adventure 1, when you spam the homing attack button, Sonic automatically locks onto enemies, but for some reason in this game, if there's like a row of enemies in front of you and you're homing attacking over every single one, for some reason there'll always be one that I miss. The homing attack just won't lock on for some reason, and that could either cause me to die or just kill the momentum of my attack. And that fucking Rouge level where you have to collect the 3 Chaos Emeralds in 5 minutes, I mean, I already struggled looking for these emeralds in the first place, like trying to find the best way to get around the level, but when they keep respawning every time you fail, it's just so irritating. Eventually I got it done. I mean, originally my friend had to do it for me. I went back and then eventually did it myself, but oh my god, I hate that level so much. And there's another thing, like, Shadow feels like an unlockable skin. Like, I don't know, he doesn't feel much different to play than Sonic. That's what I don't like about some games, when you play as the main character and then you play as another character, where that character feels exactly the same to play as the first character, if that makes sense. That's kind of how Shadow feels. There's random things in the story, like a random golem appearing, and there's like a hidden temple on Space Colony Arc. There's just really, really weird stuff in there. And it kind of sounds like I'm shitting on this game quite a lot, and in a way I am, but at the same time, it's not bad at all. There are so many great things about this game. Like, for example, the introduction to Shadow, how he became a crowd favourite until he kind of got messed up along the lines, and now hopefully they can do something with him in the future and make him good again. But his introduction is really, really cool. I've always loved Shadow as a character, you know, this mysterious, sort of dark and brooding character with a deep, dark backstory. You know, he was friends with Maria. Maria got shot. Well, we know that she got shot now thanks to Shadow the Hedgehog, the game. But yeah, I've always loved Shadow, and I think the last time we actually got a decent Shadow the Hedgehog story involving this character was actually Sonic 06. Despite all that game's flaws, the Shadow campaign, story-wise, was pretty good. Tails' new gameplay is fine. I don't mind it that much. It's a bit like the Gamma Shooting Gallery, but I much prefer, like, if I could just play it as him, using his flight ability to traverse large gaps and stuff like that, but the levels aren't quite designed like that. But I think despite all the complaining I've done, I do think that Sonic Adventure 2 has some of the more memorable stages than Adventure 1. Like immediately, when someone tells me, can you think of a great stage from the Sonic Adventure series, like the Dreamcast era, I would immediately point to City Escape. 1, you get chased by a big fuck-ass truck, there's a great soundtrack in the back, Sonic is running through a massive city, and what I really like about the level design in Sonic Adventure 2, in particular this one, is that they implicate Sonic's sort of style with the loop-to-loops and the ramps and stuff like that, but they put it in like a modern day city, and it just works for that character in particular. Because obviously in real life we're not going to see like massive ramps and trucks crashing through buildings and stuff like that. I mean, how are people just going to go on their daily basis life if the city is designed like this? But it's such a unique idea. And obviously I can't forget one of the most awesome moments in like Sonic history, in my opinion, is when Sonic and Shadow superform up at the same time to fight the evil Bio-Lizard. That was really, really cool, with a heartfelt ending. I mean, now it's kind of going back and forth between the first and the between the first and the second one now, because like overall I prefer the first one's gameplay and how it plays, but the second one I like its stages and its story more. It's really, really difficult to decipher which one I truly think is better, but I think if I had to think, just from what I'm thinking about right now, I would say the first Sonic Adventure is my favourite. So that's that. Sonic Adventure 2 at the S tier. Right, so I just realised that I spent like 15 to 20 minutes on those two games in particular, so I'm going to try and get through these next few a little faster, just so the video's not too long. So anyway, next up on the list is Sonic Heroes, and if I'm being absolutely real with everybody, it's not the best thing in the world. Like, of what I remember, I would say I would put it at the C tier. Now, for example, what Sonic Heroes does really well, it has really, really cool features with its power formations. You know, you play as all these different characters all at once. You have a speed formation, a fly formation, and a power formation, and you use these different abilities to get through stages in different sort of ways. Constantly switching between the three of them, that's really, really cool and done pretty well. And they all have their very own distinctive styles. But I think the only problem with Sonic Heroes in general, despite the nostalgia that I have for it, despite how much I loved it as a kid, I remember when I went back to Sonic Heroes. I remember when I was a kid, I used to play the shit out of Sonic Heroes. I got loads and loads of A ranks, like 120 emblems, and then accidentally and then my save accidentally got corrupted, and I never got that far again. But this is actually the first time that I've beaten the story, and that includes the final boss. But I think the problem with Sonic Heroes is that it's very, very samey. Like, for example, you go through a campaign as one team, but then you've got to do the same campaign with not much variety and detail and changes to the levels. You've got to do it 4 times. So, for example, you've got Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, and Team Chaotix. Team Chaotix switches things up a little bit, but not enough to make it feel like it's completely different and fresh. It's like you're playing the same campaign 4 times with not a lot of changes, and that can get really, really boring and tedious.
There's a word for this. Boring.
And I think that's where Sonic Heroes' main issue goes with, along with some of its mechanics. Like, yeah, so for example, the only mechanic that I can think of which really, really irks me in terms of when you're trying to go fast and it just fucks up for you, it's when you're on the grind rails, especially in levels like Rail Canyon, Bullet Station, or the Egg Fleet or something, like levels where there's a lot of grind rails. For some reason, the mechanics are so janky and slippery that when you press the square button, if you're playing on PS2 like I did, to switch a rail, sometimes you'll be going that fast, you will fly off the platform completely and die. And that's really annoying. So I felt the need to use the flight formation character quite a lot, because the flight character goes really slowly down the rails and it felt safer, but it didn't feel fun to use. You're not going to get a good score because you're going too slow. It's just irritating stuff like that. Not only that, but when you're running, sometimes the controls are so like stiff when you're going really fast that you end up flying off the edge or falling over the most ridiculous platforms in general. Stuff that shouldn't kill you, that just kills you. It's really annoying. But I think if I have one complaint, it would be the Chaos Emeralds. Like, for example, to unlock the final boss, which is Metal Sonic, you need all 7 Chaos Emeralds. You acquire the Chaos Emeralds by collecting a key in the second stage of each level. Now the thing is, when you acquire this key in any level, you have to hold onto that key. Don't get hit, don't die, or you'll lose it. Because if you don't have the key on you, then you're not getting to the special stage and you won't have a chance to get the emerald. So it can be a tedious process to try and redo these levels, get the key, try not to get hit, get to the goal ring, just to have a chance to get the emerald. Now, I meant that. A chance to get the emerald. If you fail to get the emerald, you have to redo that level all over again, collect the key, don't get hit, don't die, get to the goal ring, just for another chance at getting the emerald. This is what really, really irked me when I was a kid, and I found it really, really difficult. Luckily, I found a strategy on YouTube where if you play as Team Rose, because the stages are shorter, easier, quicker, and then when you eventually get to the Chaos Emerald stages, play it as Big and keep spamming the square button if you're playing on PlayStation. And then eventually within about 30 seconds you'll acquire the emerald, but it gets more difficult as it goes along because the emerald stages will eventually start putting these bombs which really, really slow you down. So it is a really tedious process, but I knew that I had to do it this time because I'm a 30-year-old man now. I never even got to that point when I was a kid, and I really, really wanted to see if I could do it, and I did. So overall, Sonic Heroes has a lot of cool things about it that I love. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. The music, I think, is one of the best in the series. The levels can be fun when you go through one playthrough, but there's a lot of repetition in it. A lot of going up the same fan, going up the same fucking pole, losing the same key to get the same fucking Chaos Emerald. It's just all that sort of stuff. It's just very, very samey, and I think that's why it's really dipped in quality for me over the years. So overall, Sonic Heroes, I'm going to put it at the C tier because I still like it, but nowhere near as much as I did when I was a kid. Right, moving on to the next game, we have Eerie The Hedgehog right here. That's going right at the bottom at the E tier. This game is not good. Now, I think there's no surprise here. Shadow the Hedgehog is very over-talked about before, but I've never spoken about it on the internet before, not on my channel, not on Nebcam Gaming or anything like that, so I really want to dive into, well, not dive into, like, give specifics of why this game is bad. Probably nothing original here. I'm probably not going to be able to say anything which hasn't already been said, but here we go. So Shadow the Hedgehog starts out, and it's a very, very, like, dark and gritty sort of setting. It's like, I do generally miss the darker storytelling in Sonic games. I mean, hopefully Sonic Frontiers can change that when it comes out later this year. Really looking forward to that game. It looks pretty cool. So anyway, but yeah, the story in Shadow the Hedgehog just makes no sense. It's like, it's one of those games where you can pick between evil and good, but the story constantly contradicts itself. You could play like an evil mission in one level, and then it'll bring you to another mission where Shadow is suddenly helping the good guy. It just, stuff like that makes no sense, and it's like it constantly happens throughout the entire thing. So it's like, the only thing that makes sense, story-wise, in this game, is the opening cutscene, the final level, and the final cutscene. Those things, beginning and end, make sense. Whatever the fuck happens in the middle, God only knows how we got there, because I really don't know. It's like Shadow is evil one minute, he's good the next. His motivations just make no sense whatsoever. We get repeated lines of dialogue where he's like, I will find out who I am, I will discover the past. And it just gets really, really annoying hearing Shadow like constantly say these same lines of dialogue over and over again, maybe mix them up a little bit. It's just annoying stuff like that. But I'm never going to get tired of this line right here.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Now, this is the first game to introduce gunplay, and while the guns do lock on pretty well and can be quite powerful, they're not that fun to use. Though neither's the homing attack or anything in this game. You can unlock vehicles which are for some reason slower than running, so what's the point? You have a jeep, a bike, a glider, a Black Hawk that you can ride. Each and every single one of these is slower than running, so what's the point? When you complete a campaign, you get a special weapon added to like an inventory where you can break a certain box in a level and acquire that weapon. But for some reason, some of these weapons are pretty powerful but not a lot of ammo. The one that doesn't make sense to me is the fucking samurai sword. What is the point in this thing? You swing it and it loses ammunition. Okay, so I had to record my reaction for this because it's just so abysmal. I am gobsmacked. So, you can now unlock a samurai sword in Shadow the Hedgehog, which is completely fucking dumb. I mean, look at the bottom right, or my right anyway. It has ammunition. How does a sword have ammunition? I mean, you know what? I had to turn my brain off if I'm going to get through this. This is, oh my god. You pick it up. Oh, 4? Okay, so let me just swing my sword 4 times, and then after that I can't use it anymore. What the hell is that?
You're a donut! You're so stupid! You're so stupid! You're stupid!
Now, overall in this game, there are 10 endings. 10 endings. That's 10 times playing through different campaigns, which feel almost the same. How many times do I have to see Westopolis before I want to gouge my eyes out and shove them up my own arse? It's unreal. The thing is, none of these endings are even important. There's only the beginning and the end that really matter in story. That makes sense. Everything in the middle is just a complete mess, constant contradictions, stuff that doesn't make sense. You'll do one thing 1 minute and then a different thing the next. Follow the hero 1 minute, follow the villain the next. Nothing makes sense in this game. It's so frustrating. It's not only that, but you also fight the same couple of bosses every single time as well, because you play through the game 10 times. You come across the same bosses like Black Doom, Eggman, the black I don't even know what the fucking creature's called, but here it is. It's right here. And the general. You go through these same couple of bosses multiple times and it gets really boring and really tedious. And by the way, fuck Lost Impact Hero Mission. I hated every waking second of that. This game is bad. It is really bad. One thing I can give it though is that its art style is pretty good. In the CGI cutscenes it looks pretty good, but then it goes to the in-game graphics when you're playing, and in other sort of cutscenes as well. But overall, I did have a lot of nostalgia for Shadow the Hedgehog when it first came out, but if I'm being really real with myself, the game is not good. And let's all give a round of applause to the creativity of the names of these bad guys in this game. Let's see. The bad guys are the black creatures, led by Black Doom. The army is called the Black Arms. They live on the Black Comet. They have alien pets called Black Hawks. It's like... But they're grey! Right, I would have needed anxiety therapy if I carried on talking about that game. Let's move on. So, the next game on this list is Sonic Riders. I actually like this game. I'm going to put it at the B tier. What I really like about Sonic Riders is its concept. I like the concept of Sonic on a hoverboard. For example, I know we have like Team Sonic Racing where he's in a car, but I think it's more unique to have Sonic on a hoverboard than a car. I don't know, like, why does Sonic need a car? But the concept of a hoverboard is just cooler than a car when it comes to Sonic. The story isn't much to talk about, it's just very basic and simple. For example, Eggman is hosting this Grand Prix, and he says this.
Not just a race, but a special race to see who's the fastest.
Yes, Dr. Eggman, not suspicious at all. That is opposed to a regular race, right? Right? What I really like about Riders is there may not be that many tracks, and I think it does need more. I think it could have benefited from a few more tracks. But I really like the idea of pulling off tricks to keep the air meter filled. It's really satisfying to get these tracks right when you perform all these different tricks, flips, spins, land on grind rails to keep that air meter filled to go faster. That is what I think is where the benefits of Riders comes from the most. Sonic has always been known for replayability, and Sonic Riders does this really well. It's just fun. The game is overall just really good fun. Pulling off these tricks, getting the tracks right, racing faster than your enemies. It's really good stuff. I didn't really play the story all that much because the races got a bit difficult for me, but me and my friend, we did play the two-player quite a lot and raced against each other. That was pretty cool. But overall, the only flaw this game has really is that the controls are a bit stiff in places and it needed more tracks. But overall, Sonic Riders, I had a good time with it. The next game on this list is Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. I am not too keen on this one, if I'm being honest, guys. I'm going to put it at the D tier. Now, it's mainly because I just had no fun playing it at all. There's not much difference between the first game and this game. This game just feels less fun. This game takes out the ability to perform all these tricks and pulling them off, brilliantly, so you could utilize the tracks and get faster. It sort of takes that away and replaces it with this gravity flow sort of thing. So overall, I just think Sonic Riders Zero Gravity is a more boring version of the first game. But the only thing that it does have for it is that it does have more tracks, which is what I was hoping for the first one. This game does have more tracks, but overall, I don't think I'll play this game again. If I'm ever going to play a Sonic racing game, I will always go back to Sonic Riders and not necessarily this one. Alright, so I got through those pretty quickly because there's not much to say. The story is very minimal, and I don't really know much about racing games to comment that much, but yeah, here we go. Moving on. Oh god, it's time for my anxiety therapy to come back. Sonic 06. Bang on the E tier. Right, so where do I start with Sonic 06? This game had all the tools and everything going behind it. A brand new console launch for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. It had everything going for it, and it failed miserably. The performance in this game is just goddamn awful, with terrible frame rate drops and long loading screens. I don't even know where to begin with this thing. So I think I'll just start off with stuff that I liked about it, which isn't much to say, but the story was pretty interesting. The lore of Soliana and the story of Iblis and Mephiles. I thought that was really, really good, how they merged together to form Solaris. I thought the lore behind that was interesting, and finding out how it worked and stuff like that. The little nods that we get to it, the symbols on the walls with the eagle and stuff like that. All that I think is really, really interesting. The level design I think is pretty good. The way that the level is made, how you can traverse it is really, really good. The only thing is, since the game performs badly and controls badly, good level design doesn't mean shit if the game doesn't control well, which this game just doesn't. Now, what really, really bugged me the most with these frame rate drops is that, particularly in the last mission, well, one of the last missions where you're trying to find a Chaos Emerald to try and revive Sonic and then at least perform some kind of bestiality on Sonic right there, but yeah, there's that.
No! No! No!
Oh my God!
No, that's not what I...
But yeah, in that level in particular, you have these like big black holes that open and suck you in. When you're trying to jump out the way and the frame rate drops, you can't tell how far forward you've gone, and so most of the time you'll find yourself dying or getting sucked into these holes, having to replay the entire stage. It's really annoying. But let's get into the fucking loading screens. The loading screens, particularly in the hub worlds, are terrible. For example, you'll go up to an NPC, click talk, 30-second loading screen. The NPC tells you what he wants you to help him with. You click yes or no. 30-second loading screen. The NPC says, okay then, let's get started. Do this. 30-second loading screen. Then you play the level. But if you fuck up that level, you have to sit through all those loading screens again. And this is like a constant problem with Sonic 06. The load times are ridiculously poor. It's really, really stupid. I really don't know how they managed to mess this up. All the tools for a great Sonic game were here, and they just messed it up. One thing I can praise about it as well is that Shadow's story, as I mentioned before, is pretty good. I do enjoy Shadow's story. Silver is an interesting character, but with this being his debut, people don't really have many fond memories of him, but I really do like Silver's powers. I think they're pretty cool. I do like the representation of that Sonic is of the present, Shadow is of the past, and Silver is of the future. That's interesting. I do like the Solaris boss battle when you play as Super Sonic, Shadow, and Silver all at once, switching between the three. That's a cool boss fight with an awesome soundtrack in the background. I mean, it's weird how I go back and forth with this, but mostly Sonic 06 is a bad game, and that's why it's at the bottom. Alright guys, now it's time for the storybook series. I'm going to try and get through these a little faster because, I mean, I know I said that before, but I'm really like pushing for time here. So I'm going to try and get through these next couple a bit faster. So, next up on the list is Sonic and the Secret Rings. Sonic and the Secret Rings is also abysmal. Now, it's mainly down to its control scheme. I like the idea of Sonic being in the Arabian Nights, but the levels don't feel that interesting. It's kind of boring because a lot of the stages look the same. It's like some sandy looking Arabian time thingy. And this is actually the first game on this list that I didn't finish because the controls were just killing the experience for me. I get it. If I carried on playing, I could have found some fun out of it. But do I really want to spend like hours and hours and hours of my life trying to perfect terrible motion controls? I mean, you have to hold the Wii remote on its side. There's no excuse for this. Black Knight sort of fixed this, but there is an analog stick on the fucking nunchuck. Why couldn't... It would have been so much easier, and I probably would have had a chance at finishing this game if the controls were like that. But now, the motion controls are awkward. I even struggled in the tutorial stages. Sonic and the Secret Rings just controls appallingly bad, and I just couldn't finish the game. It was just too tedious, too annoying, too stressful, and I value my time a little more than that, so yeah. But next up on the list is Sonic and the Black Knight. This one I thought was actually a bit of an improvement, well, a massive improvement over Sonic and the Secret Rings. I actually kind of liked this one, so I'm going to put it at the C tier. Sonic and the Black Knight utilizes the ability to control Sonic using the nunchuck analog stick, and you swing the rear remote like a sword. While that is nice and everything like that, the combat can be fun when performed correctly, but it's kind of awkward to get it right sometimes, especially when you have to time the sword swings in some of the boss battles. I remember when I was facing the final boss, the amount of times I died was unreal, and that's because obviously I'm not very skilled in that department when it comes to motion controls. I am acknowledging that may not be the game's fault there, but still, The level design is also kind of boring in this, the same as Secret Rings. It kind of switches between like an open field, a castle, a dungeon, you know, basic medieval stuff. Stopping in the street to help NPCs in the stages is weird because it kind of wastes time, but overall, Sonic and the Black Knight was kind of a good time. I kind of enjoyed my time with it, because yes, the sword mechanics can be really, really awkward, but when you get them right, it is super satisfying just to slice through like hordes and hordes of enemies and getting a perfect score. I also like the message at the end about living life to the fullest, and I'll play a clip right here just so you understand what I mean.
Merlina, every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
That to me is like the perfect send-off for the 4Kids era of Sonic. Obviously, the voice actors changed from past this game going forward, which is a shame because Jason Griffiths has always been Sonic to me. I mean, the new Sonic actor, is it Roger Craig Smith, I think his name is. He's good as well, but I generally prefer Jason. Next up on the list, this is where we get to some of my favourites, guys. Alright, so Sonic Unleashed is going at the A tier. Now, straight off the bat, what I can say about Sonic Unleashed is this was the introduction to the boost formula. I love the boost formula. It's very fast and fun. You can drift around corners. It's really, really energetic, electrifying, fast, fun, and it's really fun just to get the levels right, because the level design in Sonic Unleashed is some of the best I've seen so far in terms of the stages, when you have big open cities, jungles, big ice levels and stuff like that. The level design in Sonic Unleashed is absolutely perfect when you're in the daytime stages. So boost formula Sonic has always been something which I've really liked. I generally prefer like the adventure era sort of thing. That's why I'm really interested in what Sonic Frontiers will bring to us, because by the looks of the trailers, it's got a boost feature, but it's also adventure-ish at the same time, if that makes sense. Now let's see, the Werehog. I'm not going to complain too much about the Werehog because everybody rips on the Werehog. I don't mind it. It can be a little long and tedious and boring in places, but upgrading your combat and pulling off all these moves reminded me of God of War a little bit. Just like bashing enemies and getting a really good score. That could be pretty interesting, but it's kind of annoying when you're like so far into the level, because these levels can take a bit longer. They could take about 20 to 30 minutes sometimes. If you die right at the end or something like that and lose all your rings and all your power-ups, you're not going to get an S rank. And yet, that does implore you to play the game more and try and get better at it. This is just a personal thing. I don't have time for that, which is probably why I favour Generations a little more over this one. But yeah, overall, I think Sonic Unleashed story is pretty good as well. You know, with the whole lore about Dark Gaia and Chip. Chip, for example, let's talk about Chip. Although his English voice actor is pretty annoying, but like, this is one of those characters where he has all the tools, he has the design, he has the voice, everything which could make him annoying, but he's kind of not. It's kind of weird because like, there's so many games and TV shows and films where they introduce like a comedic relief character and you're like, oh god, this guy could be really annoying, but then they turn out to be alright. Some prime examples I can think of when it comes to characters which could be annoying but weren't is Forky from Toy Story 4 and Zenitsu from Demon Slayer. They have everything behind them which could make them really annoying, but they're also really good and engaging characters. Chip is kind of the same. Again, I didn't finish this game mainly because of the Sun and Moon medal collecting. That is what will take up most of your time when doing this. I do plan on doing it in future, but I had COVID when I was playing this game, and like I guess feeling ill and knowing that I had to go back and redo all these stages and get all these Sun and Moon medals and it could take ages, I just valued my time a little more than that, and so I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to move on. But in the future, I do plan on getting those Sun and Moon medals and beating Unleashed for the first time. Alright, moving on guys, it is time for Sonic Colors. I really enjoyed Sonic Colors, that's going at the A tier as well. There's a couple of things about it that I didn't really like, but overall, most of Sonic Colors I really enjoyed. It's one of the best in terms of level design. You have like these big interesting levels in space. You're running along these energy plasma-filled platforms, running through a giant cake and donut section. I mean, how much more cool can you get than that? And the Wisps really add a lot of variety to the game in terms of traversing the level in a different way. Not all of them I liked. I didn't really like the block wisp or the drill wisp, but I really did enjoy the laser wisp. and a couple of others, but overall the Wisps really utilised the level design and, you know, for you to find fun and engaging ways of traversing each and every level, getting the red rings and everything like that. Really cool stuff. Well, that's all good and great, including a great final boss, by the way. The final boss in Sonic Colors is amazing. I really like it. The things that I don't like about it is that the story is pretty much non-existent, and they try and tell jokes which just fall so flat that they're worse than my dad jokes, and believe me, I tell some really bad dad jokes. Like, for example, why shouldn't you eat a clock? Because it's time consuming. I totally didn't steal that from The Last of Us 2. I made it up before that joke is even a thing, okay? And while I do like Sonic's new voice actor, Roger Craig Smith, I think he's pretty good. I generally do prefer Jason from the old games. But anyway, that's not too much of an issue. I think overall there are too many 2D sections in this game. Like for example, I know that people could say that, you know, the 2D game isn't an objective problem. No, it's not. It's not. It's mainly a personal preference that I really don't like the 2D Sonic games all that much. And so when I'm running at high speeds through these awesome 3D sections, and then I hit a wall when there's so many platforms to jump up on a 2D section, I just think it slows the pace of the game down just a little bit. But overall, it's not that much of a problem. Sonic Colors is amazing, and by the way, I played the Wii version, not the Ultimate version. I haven't played that version yet. So yeah, Sonic Colors. Alright guys, we are almost at home stretch. Let's go. The next game on the list is Sonic Generations. That is going smack bang on the S tier. While the story may not be that great in Sonic Generations, what I do like about Sonic Generations is that it's a love letter to the fans. It's like an anniversary package sort of thing. For the first time ever, we see classic Sonic and modern Sonic teaming up. I really love that. It gives us some nice nostalgic memories in terms of old levels like City Escape, Seaside Beach, I think it's called, from Sonic Heroes. You have levels from Sonic Colors in there. You have Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant. Everything from an old Sonic game will probably pop up in this game, and it's really cool throwbacks and stuff like that. I generally do enjoy City Escape the most. This is like a modernized version of it, and with a really cool remix soundtrack of the original song. Still prefer the original song, but the soundtrack is pretty good too. And I just thought it was awesome just to see like old Sonic and new Sonic together, just teaming up. And I really do like that they kept classic Sonic silent and didn't make him speak. They didn't really do the same for for classic Tails, but doesn't matter. So overall, I do think this is one of the best in terms of level designs, and the boosting feature is still awesome, how you utilise momentum to get to the end of the stage faster. But I do think that getting an S rank is a little too easy on this game. For example, in Sonic Unleashed, it will make you prove that you are good at the game before it gives you an S rank, whereas this game sort of hands them to you pretty willingly. For example, I remember playing one level on Unleashed, and I was going through it multiple times trying to get an S rank, and I just never did. Like, I got like an A at the most, and I thought, okay, then I'm clearly not very good at this game, am I? But then when I play Sonic Generations, I remember playing through the first 4 stages, one after the other, and I S-ranked every single one almost flawlessly. And I thought, I didn't play much different than I did in Unleashed, but I still got an S rank anyway. It's kind of too easy in that department. I think if you want to get an S rank, that's about mastering the stage, knowing where everything is, having a certain number of rings, getting a good time, having a certain number of points by killing enemies. Sonic Generations doesn't really do that. It's a little too generous with its S rankings, but that doesn't really dampen the enjoyment for me because it's nice and simple. You can get through it a little quicker than Unleashed. And yeah, I generally think that Sonic Generations is one of the best. A love letter to the fans, a great anniversary package. That's why it's at the S tier for me. Right, so next up on the list is Sonic and the Lost World. Now, a lot of people shit on this game, but I actually didn't think it was that bad. So I'm going to put it at the C tier. A lot of people will look at Sonic the Lost World and immediately think, oh, Super Mario Galaxy clone. Which, yes, you'd be right there. But I think for me personally, since I have never played Super Mario Galaxy, I don't have that connection to the franchise. I'm really not that much of a Nintendo guy at all. And in terms of Mario, he just doesn't really interest me that much to the same level as Sonic does. So I've got into this game without that feeling that it's copying or anything like that. And so I had a great time with Sonic Lost World. Yes, by looking at comparisons with screenshots and gameplay that I've seen, I can see why it's going to piss fans off, why it's going to annoy people, but since I have no connection to Mario, I can overlook it. but that doesn't make it objectively good. But despite how fun the game may be in manipulating momentum and the spin dash is back, trying to get to the end really fast, cool platforming segments, the wisps are back, for some unknown reason, I don't know why, but they are. That doesn't take away from everything else that's wrong with the game. Like, for example, the story is also non-existent. The bad guys are terrible. The Deadly Six are some of the worst villains I've seen in Sonic ever. And for some reason, it always holds back on great storytelling. Like, for example, in this one cutscene, Sonic couldn't save Tails. He failed to save his friend. And then Eggman and Sonic have like a mini heart-to-heart. It lasts a couple of seconds and then they have this massive realization, and it's like, let the characters dwell on these feelings just for a little bit. Stretch it out just a little bit. And it kind of has the same problem that Sonic Colors does in the writing department. The jokes just don't always land, or they don't land at all. But my main issue with the game is the fact that the game doesn't always tell you things. A game doesn't have to outright tell me, but at least give me some indication of what I'm supposed to do. There's one level in particular where you have to use a kick attack. The game doesn't tell you that you have to use this kick attack. Luckily, I watched a couple of Lost World reviews before playing the game for myself, so I already knew about the kick attack, but I can see it being really, really annoying if you don't know what to do. So overall, Sonic the Lost World, I really did enjoy it, but I can't really put it any higher than I have, I'm afraid. So, yeah, we'll move on. Alright guys, 3 games left. Let's do this. I'm gonna get Sonic Dash out the way really quickly. It's fine. I'll put it at the C tier. It's basically an auto scroller. You swipe left and right on your phone, up and down. It could be fun if you're in a long car journey or something like that. I said something similar with like my Ratchet & Clank tier list with Ratchet & Clank before the Nexus. It's pretty much the same there. It's designed to sort of eat up your time. There's no completing it really. It's fun enough. I'm not too keen on mobile games, so I don't really have much to add than that. Alright, so anyway, Sonic Team Racing. I actually enjoyed this game a lot more than I thought I would, you know. I'm going to put it at the B tier. Basically, I generally prefer the concept of Sonic on hoverboards, but Team Sonic Racing I thought was really interesting. I mean, it's not that much fun when you're playing it by yourself, but if you've got like a bunch of buddies with you to help tag team your opponents and try and win together, that is where the enjoyment of the game comes from. The story is also non-existent. I don't really like the fact that you have like still frame cutscenes and not much depth to the characters and stuff like that. This is like a common thread since Sonic Colors, to be honest. The storytelling hasn't been that great. I do miss the edgier, dark storytelling of the older Sonic games, you know, post Colors, or is it pre? I don't fucking care. But yeah, it's a fun enough game, utilizing your you know a drift mechanic and getting these power ups. I don't think it's quite as good as like Crash Team Racing, the remake anyway, but I really enjoyed it. Sonic Team Racing, Team Sonic Racing is a decent enough game, but I highly recommend that you play it with friends to get more enjoyment out of it. And the last game on the list, everybody, we've made it to the end. Is Sonic Forces. This game is very, very bleh. Now, what I mean by bleh, I don't mean bad. What I don't like about it is that I put it on, and within like 4 hours, I beat it. It was like, is that it? Now, granted, Sonic games aren't that long anyway, but I remember at least in each of these Sonic games, I spent at least 2 or 3 sittings with each and every one. This game, I blasted through it in one sitting. In 1 4-hour sitting, and the game was done. That is really, really underwhelming. There's a lot of things that this game could have done well, but sort of didn't. It's got like a... In fact, I talked earlier about how Sonic has lost its edgier storytelling. This game tries to bring it back and kind of fails miserably. Like, I don't know if it's the writing department. I just don't think they're very good writers. I think Sega, if they're gonna push forward with Sonic Frontiers, they're gonna need a better writing team and stuff like that. I really think it's that anyway. But overall, I just think Sonic Forces was just too damn easy. I felt like I didn't have to do much to win at all, besides hold down the square button if you're playing on PS5 or 4, and blast forward, and that's it. There's a couple of platforming segments where you have to jump over things and be precise with your jumps and timings and stuff like that, but most of it is just boost, 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 and you'll fucking win and get an S rank, no problem. That is where I think its major flaw is. It's too short, it's too easy, it's too underwhelming, the storytelling isn't that good. I mean, they try and do this big epic war battleground thing at the end and all the characters are charging towards each other like, ah! I just looked at it and thought, this just doesn't work, man. It just doesn't work for me.
One more thing!
Oh god. And yeah, it's kind of a shame that it went that route. Another thing which I don't get about Forces is that Sonic lately keeps reintroducing the Wisps. Why What is their purpose in the story? They played a factual role in Colours, and it was nice seeing them back in Lost World, but to bring them back again with no purpose whatsoever, I don't understand. But I think overall, those are my issues with it. That and Classic Sonic plays like complete dog shit. Why is Classic Sonic in this game too? Oh, because it worked in Generations, that means we have to do it again. It worked as a one-time thing, Sega, for God's sake. We don't need to keep having the two together all the time before it becomes absolutely nothing. So I think that's it, guys. I've got through every single one. This video has been a long time coming. I have tried multiple times to try and film it, and I just kept losing motivation. And I'm so glad that I managed to push through it and actually make the video. I was not going to let burnout beat me this time. And hopefully I can get a little more consistent in future. Obviously, I thought I would after my last video, but that's still not the case. It's a work in progress. I'm happy with what I'm doing right now. I'm happy with the goal that I've set for myself. And hopefully we can get a bit more going. So overall, guys, let's go over the games that we've covered. In the S tier, we have Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic Generations. In the A tier, we have Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors. In the B tier, we have Sonic Riders and Team Sonic Racing. In the C tier, we have Sonic Heroes, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Lost World, and Sonic Dash. In the D tier, we have Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, and Sonic Forces. And in the bottom tier, the E tier, the games which I think are generally bad, we have Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, and Sonic and the Secret Rings. We have done it, everybody. Well, I have done it, should I say. Wow. Okay, now time for the tedious editing process. I'll hopefully have this video out soon. So I just want to thank everybody for sitting down and listening to me ramble for this long. It's been a lot of fun at the same time. I just had to get myself in the right headspace to film this, because there are a lot of games to cover. So overall, guys, let me know what you think down below in the comments. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. If you like what I do here, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Remember, it's not just a video game, it's an experience. Take care, everyone, and stay awesome. Gotta go fast.